Yeah, hi everyone again. Hi Bharat, good to have you.
Hi, Shrikant.
So I'm going to get down to it, like straight away. As you're aware, Jagran New Media is one of the biggest publishers in India. It's not just Jagran.com, but they have a bunch of other verticals which are also enormously successful. So let me just tilt this a bit, I think. Okay. So I'm going to just get down to it straight away. So Jagran has been online, on the web for more than 20 years. It is 25 years?
So actually, if you strictly talk about the first news website, that was late 90s, I would say.
So it's like 25 years, okay. So maybe you're celebrating a silver jubilee. But you took over as CEO in 2017, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
You joined in 2016 and took over as CEO. So what did you see as the big challenge at that point? When you took over, the Jagran had been online for almost 20 years already, correct? And so what did you see as the issue when you took over? What were the issues? I'm sure it wasn't a single issue.
Okay, so it's a tricky question, Shrikant, so let me try and attempt it. So I think clearly there were three things which were happening. First was the perception that coming from a newspaper organization, there was this very strong mindset that digital is just an extension of print, and all the content that is getting generated for print will work automatically on digital as well, right? So I think there was this perception issue. The second issue was volume of content will lead to more numbers. And the third issue was that sustainability will happen at a very later date, and we need to adapt a burn rate formula. And that was the term, that you need to keep on burning money if you want to earn money later.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think these were the three primary challenges.
So, these challenges are all internal, right? Meaning that the sense that, listen, if we just dump the stuff that we have from print onto online, it ought to work, okay? And the second one was, you mentioned?
The second one was volume of content.
Volume, correct. And third was that, listen, we have to burn. So there was at that point no sense of that there was a deadline to become profitable.
Yes.
There wasn't.
There wasn't initially. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But actually, culturally, what does it do to a company when, for a very long period of time, it is a loss-making venture? What does it do to the morale of the people? I'm going to ask you slightly different questions.
So I think, Shrikant, the response of the company at that stage was owing to the limited understanding of the medium. There were many ventures at that stage, we must appreciate, like where people were creating websites to either sell them or to create some kind of an alternate model. And
Correct.
It was never thought of a sustainable extension of the core business at that point of time.
Not even in 2016 and 17.
Not even in 2000, I would say 16. It was never like that it's extended, but it will be there. At what point it will be there, no one knew that this change would come, because also because the kind of reach which was coming to the traditional media along with the revenue was too large to be imagined through digital as a medium, right? But over there, I would say, I think it's interesting that how do you change this perception, right? And something which I would like to take away from the first presentation in the day, the ComScore one, is that data, right? And is there a way where using data you can understand how is the ecosystem shaping up? What are the audiences? Where are they coming from? What are they consuming? And how can publishers position themselves to scale, to sustain, to create impact? I think these were the three questions which we tried to answer there.
And what is the greatest urgency? You're from the you're from the family that owns Jagran, right? So what was the urgency seen? Was it on stopping the bleeding? Was that the top priority? Was it? What was the thing that you were told? Listen, Bharat, this is the number one thing that you need to deal with.
So I think clearly the mandate then was that we have to ensure the brand longevity, right? So somewhere there was also this fear that if digital takes over, will the brand sustain over a longer period of time?
Correct.
So the longevity was the challenge then. How do you ensure the brand longevity?
Okay, and were you given a deadline saying that, listen, you ought to reach, or did you offer to give a deadline saying that, listen, I think this is the year by which we ought to say, because you had looked at all the data, right? You had a sense, and you are a profitable company now, right? So had you set a year for yourself, saying this is the year?
Yes. So we presented a 4-year plan. So the first thing was we conducted a research in trying to gather market insights, and not just one research, but 2 research, one through a telco in trying to understand the movement between mobile, web, television, and other on the content side through a research firm in trying to understand the audience shift which is taking place. Use that insight to establish a model of sustainability, and then we came out with a 4-year plan wherein by 2020 we were supposed to be sustainable.
Okay, that was pretty short deadline.
Yeah,
Considering that
yeah.
you'd been losing money for such, did you meet that deadline?
Yes, I'm proud to say that when we started the journey, we were at close to about 30 CR of revenue, about 27 million users, minus 17 CR in terms of profitability. And in December 2019, a little early, we first went profitable, and then came pandemic. We got scared, but
Pandemic.
pandemic, the 2020, but yet our all the efforts which had been made to create the organization or shape the organization in terms of culture, technology, people, I think they started to play a great role. And throughout 2020, we were profitable. And I would say by March 2021, we crossed the revenue of 71 CR with 12% EBITDA margin. And that was a moment of glory for us.
Okay, good. That's really great. And what has been the growth last year?
For last year, our growth was about close to about 13%, primarily due to certain factors, but
Okay.
yes, 1-3, yeah.
So you mean it ought to have been higher than that, you think?
We are aiming much higher, so Gaurav is here. So
That's
I think,
okay,
Srikanth, what has happened in the past is one thing, but what we want to achieve in the future is something else. And clearly the next goal which we have set for ourselves is to attain 1,000 crore top line by March 2028.
1,000 crore? You're just now
Yes,
at 80
yes,
crore plus, right? I
yes,
guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's a big one. So wow, that's a lot of things to ask you then. So where will the growth? Okay, first, how much of this revenue is coming from the traditional banner advertising? And where does the rest of it come from?
So in terms of traditional revenue, I think if we go back to 2017, 95% of the revenue was through ad impressions or
Okay.
inventory advertising, right? And that is where I, Gaurav, and along with some team members, we decided on a change in strategy, that we identified 4 key components, which is inventory revenue, syndication, production house, and subscription. And by the time we reached 2021, only 55% of the revenue was through inventory, and the other 3 verticals they took over and constituted to 45. I think this was the first challenge, that if we have to sustain, we could not have depended upon advertising revenues alone. And instead, we needed to develop alternative sources of revenue. We identified that if the medium is expanding, if the medium is penetrating, then there are new advertisers who would require different kind of solutions. Is there a place where we can pitch in ourselves as a solution provider rather than just an advertising platform? And I think that was that DNA change which started to transpire.
So when you say solution provider, media companies have done that in with regard to activation, right? They've said we are a solution provider and we can do outdoors, with regard to brand activation. Is this similar in nature? Solution provider, what kind of stuff is this?
So our core is, as publishers, our core is creation of content. You are a content first company, right? So if you have a great team of authors who are producing news content, lifestyle content, different genres of content, then can you utilize their creativity to produce great content narratives even for brands in terms of not only as branded content articles, but also as ad films, also as narratives, also as a marketing strategy, because as we were talking in we were hearing during the last panel discussion, as publishers you tend to understand your audiences better. And if I represent a Hindi heartland market, perhaps I can best help my client to come out with the kind of narrative that would best work with certain pockets of Hindi heartland.
But when you do this, are you operating purely online, or do you take advantage of your offline? I mean, the fact that you do have a newspaper and things, do you work with the newspaper part, or you just operate online for your clients?
So this was the second big cultural change. If you have to run, you better fall down fast, right? So if you have to learn to walk. And in 2017, we departed that way, and we said that if digital has to sustain, it has to operate independently, as long as you will be a part of the main organization and you will have dependence on either for content or revenue or something else, XYZ, it would be very difficult for you to stand up on your feet.
Do you not take content from the main paper now?
Less than, let's put a number, 5,500 pieces of content on a daily basis, over 2,000 digital first content. So the dependency on print content has reduced tremendously. And Shrikant, you have to understand that at least for the newspaper organizations, the content is anyways one day old.
Correct.
It would never work on digital. And even for that content which is coming online, less than 7 to 10% of the traffic is attributed to the content which comes through print. So anyways, you have to invest into a team which can produce digital first content, keeping the trends in mind, keeping the audiences in mind, keeping your audience strategy in mind. And most of the companies over here, I'm sure most of the publishers sitting over here would be producing a large part of content which is designed for online first audience to begin with.
Sure. Okay, so are you saying out of 5,500 pieces of content, about 2,000 is digital first, and the remaining 3,500 is still from print? But you are reducing your dependence on that steadily?
Yes, so print on the whole generates about 6,000 pieces of news articles every day, but we are utilizing only 3,000. Reason being that a lot of that content which comes from print is also very short. It doesn't work digitally because of the space constraint and stuff like that in print. It would be maybe just a 100-word article or a 50-word story. So it will never work.
Local stories.
Yeah, so it doesn't work. So we realize that perhaps this kind of content was also leading to a lot of penalties. And that's when we experimented last year, and we just shut down all of that content and instead got access to the print feed, wherein a team of digital editors, they decide what goes in, what goes out.
Okay, so it really has changed. You were saying earlier that you have expanded your team enormously. You've doubled it in size. And why is that? I mean, why now? Why not before?
Okay, that's interesting. So I think the one fundamental change which we introduced in our modeling was expanding beyond news into women, education, health and lifestyle, and now fact check, right? So each of these 4 different verticals, today they add up to roughly about 50% of our traffic offering. So 50% is from news and 50% is from non-news, right? And again, going back to the first presentation, or if you would have seen the Google Language India report, the audiences are also not consuming news in a majority way, right? So they are consuming a lot of information, right? So when we had to expand to that journey, we wanted to have dedicated content, product, marketing teams around each of these 5 verticals. We had a team of 300 for till about 2022. And now today I'm proud to say we are a team of 700 members. And it is much required to produce the right kind of content, especially because, Shrikant, if we just look at two broad things, and we saw during the last panel discussion that one, in terms of revenue, or in terms of anything else in India, there are just two approaches. One is to bring someone down, and other is to co-create and expand the industry pie. So as an organization, we have been a believer that the way landscape is changing, it's not just Google. You remove Google, there's Meta. You remove Meta, there's Paytm. You remove Paytm, there's Jio. You remove Jio, there's someone else. But apart from these large organizations at the top, the biggest challenge is the creator economy, which is coming from the bottom. The publishers are getting sandwiched in between, right? So how do you make sure that in an environment where the penetration of internet has, while democratized the economy, it has also given birth to a lot of misinformation, lot of content which is not trusted. There's a trust deficit. So if you have to beat this challenge, you need to create or invest into teams who create trusted, factual, and credible content. So I would say about 60% of the team is content, and that's where we are really investing right now.
Tell me, you talk about getting to 1,000 crore by 2028.
Yeah.
You would be seeking to add about 200 crore a year.
Yes.
How are you going to do it? I mean, it's very hard to absorb.
I know, it's very hard to absorb.
People are struggling at 100 and 200 crore, which we think is a big deal.
So I would say, if we let's look at like this, that if in 4 years' time, or in less than 4 years, if we can scale from 30 to almost 80, that there's a growth story, and which was part one, right? How you want to scale it is in two parts. One is the whole model, which is proportionate to the audience growth. In India right now, the internet penetration is only 50%, and we are just at 750 million users. Another 750 million users are yet to come online. That's one. Two, India is today the third largest global economy, fifth largest global economy in the world, with $3.7 trillion. By 2027, India will be the third largest global economy at $5.4 trillion. The add to GDP ratio is just 0.4. So there is enough headroom to grow audience. There is enough headroom to grow advertising. There is enough headroom for marketing to take place. The question is that how do you change the DNA of your organization from now a news publishing business to an audience first company? And that is that journey which we are embarking right now.
But I must tell you one thing, the ratio of advertising to GDP has been under 0. I've been associated with this business for like 30 years. It has always stayed at around that level. It doesn't rise. It hasn't, because in 1990 we used to think it'll rise. Maybe it was 0.35, 0.4, but it stays there. Right. So in the journey, but one of the things I find is that many of the things you're saying are what you intend to do. But there's also the ecosystem, yes, which allows you to do it or not allows you to do it. What is the stuff, we have about 4-5 minutes, what is the stuff that, so you've told me about what excites you, that okay, you look at the size of the economy, the upside for advertising, the way you're organizing yourself, the verticals that you have created. You got a production studio where you're doing a lot of stuff for brands, right? So before I ask you my next question, Mike, how much of your revenue, so you're saying just now 55% of your revenue comes from vanilla advertising, right? What is the other big stream of revenue for you? Which are the one or two, and which will also take you forward?
So I would say right now we have 4 divisions to revenue, as I said, which is advertising, which is subscription, which is syndication and production house. And we are adding another vertical to our stream. I would like to hold that for now.
Okay.
But coming back to your question, that the industry growth is very important if you have to grow, right? And something I look forward from all the members in this room is that imagine a question taking from a last panel discussion. It's very easy to develop your own DMPs. It's very easy to start measuring audiences. But how about the buy side? Something which keeps me awake at night is that yes, we have as a tick mark. I have a DMP. I have a process to measure my audiences. I've already mapped them. But what next? How do I sell it? Right? Is there a homogeneous or accepted network outside? So when the cookie goes away, or if and when, and absence of Google, how would advertisers or agencies buy you? Mindshare, Shrikant, you're aware, tried Zaxis long time back.
Yeah.
It never took off. They're again trying something. And every company has tried something or the other. So the need of the hour is not, is perhaps I would say the positive way to come together and imagine an architecture that is required to grow the industry and not to pull someone down. I have always been that believer. Invest into something which will help us to grow.
Okay, so, but what is apart from this is I have to ask you the AI question.
Yes.
At least you're allowed one AI question. How do you see that as an opportunity, or what is it going to do to your traffic?
So fundamentally, I've been an avid believer of the thought that AI will help companies' intellect to increase. That's my fundamental belief,
Sure, it will,
right? And to ensure that there are three things which we have to ensure that the whole ethical framework around utilization of AI, one, two, introducing your teams and making them comfortable with the power of AI in terms of the goods it can do, and like as per your panel, the negatives it can introduce, make them aware. And three, introduce a change program through internal champions, people who can come out with great use cases of how they are using AI. So while we speak, I think we have at least 6 different projects within the company which are already running utilizing AI, and it's very, very encouraging. It's very fascinating how you can use that power.
Sure, you can do it. Okay, we have 1 minute and 12 seconds. Are there one or two questions? If you have, still have some questions. If you have a question or two, please keep it short. Yeah, please identify yourself and quickly ask the question. Sir, here.
So, hello,
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Tarun Srivastav.
Okay.
So currently I'm a team leader at 3YU Media Works. So apart from this, I'm a digital marketer as well and creating content.
Okay.
I want to know that I have not decided a kind of niche clarity here right now. How to make it profitable as an influencer by creating a kind of general awareness content platform. So how can I do that to make it profitable? That's what my question is.
Okay, so I think it's a journey, I would say, and that journey you should consider just 3 very important buckets. The first is scale, the second is impact, and the third is sustainability, which is a derivative. Think of it like this. How do you use platforms and technology to scale your audiences, to scale advertisers, to onboard authoritative voices? So you right now are just one voice. Can you add more voices to your whole narrative, right? The second, which is not the number, which is impact. What is the impact of your content on progressive and inclusive society? So what is that impact? Like we had seen in the first presentation, that the needle is moving away from page views to connect to something else. So digitally there can be one impact, but on real life, are you able to introduce an impact? If yes, if you are able to club the first and the second, and you are able to introduce a culture where your team is very, I'm assuming you're not working alone, but even if you are able to do for 1 and 2, I'm sure you will crack point 3.
Okay.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We've run out of time. So, folks, thank you very much. Thank you, Bharat.